Hey, it's your boy, Hey White Whoa, Black Foreigner. uh, my account has been inactive for a while. I don't know if this is the longest I've been without posting anything. I just haven't seen as many. I've been busy, one, but I haven't seen as many things to have opinions and like unpack and like observe from different angles philosophically as of late. A lot of things kind of feel like they've been kind of the same cycle of things that I've talked about in the past. So I'm trying not to be too repetitive. I think the theme and motif matters, but I want to be like constantly saying the same thing. And I know these videos tend to get long, so I'll try and like my videos are unstructured presently because it's just more convenient that way. But yeah, for now, until I have more money and things going right, I have to kind of like do it this way. Please bear with me. I hope people are able to get something out of this video, or any of my videos, if they watch them all the way through. This one's focus is not my usual focus. Usually I'm doing something that's like a philosophical topic or a social topic, some kind of current event or things that are going on and trying to understand and unpack these things, right? Uh, and I mean, I can probably do that with what I'm going to talk about. But for right now, I want this to be focused on my experience as a foreign English teacher abroad, namely in China, and some observations. I'm going to try and go into this more detail at another point in time, or maybe do it on like a group or something. Uh, but I do feel like there's a need to kind of inform a lot of people who want to teach in China right now. China's just not long ago opened up, and there are people. There's always like a wave of people interested in teaching English for a while, even just like a passing fad, or maybe people are serious. And honestly, some part of that whether what group that person will fall into depends upon their experience actually after they get here. So even a person who like really is passionate about teaching, may come into China, and if they didn't come prepared to deal with some things, uh, they might leave with not an experience that makes them want to continue teaching. And actually, that happens a lot in the United States, so it's not unique to China. And also, just so people understand, I'm not like anti-China, and I think my videos have also highlighted that. I try to reiterate that over and over again. I've unfortunately experienced some adversity in relationship to a particular like person or two while within China, but most of the time my conflicts are actually not with anybody within like that's a Chinese person. Like I usually get along with most people I meet in China that are Chinese or like from that region. Uh, Often my disagreements will probably be with other foreigners more frequently, like vastly more frequently than with somebody who's from China. Whether it's somebody who works with like with my job at my job, or the person I meet randomly on the street, or at a bar or something. Or I don't know. I don't go to bars that often, but yeah. So I just want to make sure that's stated clearly. And the things I'm saying, I'm trying to say from my perspective and offer. I want to make sure I follow the appropriate rules and regulations that are preferred conduct for a foreigner who is a guest within China. But that being said, I do also feel obligated to inform other people who are interested in teaching abroad and teaching English in China specifically. But in general, I think it applies to every country. Uh, I want to inform them of some of the things I've had to deal with so that they can maybe avoid making the same pitfalls. Because what I'm seeing is that I think I get this sentiment that uh, there are bad actors within the process of trying to get people over here to teach English. And I've observed them like a lot over the years. I've had to deal with different recruiters, different companies I've talked to in the past, and I've kept in touch with and tried to like, I talk to other teachers. I do my best to gather an understanding of like reliable versus unreliable, and just get a vibe for each teacher or other person's uh, like tendencies and behavior. And so some companies, for example, are more or less known for good or bad practices in terms of teaching. And also in recruitment, same goes for many of the recruiters. Many of the recruiters may not say that they get paid, and it's possible maybe they don't get paid. But I have of the opinion, based upon observations and discussions, uh, that I would be happy to cite personally with somebody directly. But I'm of the opinion that like many of the recruiters end up treating this as like there's kind of pit against the foreign teachers who are incoming and the foreign teachers who are already within China. And this probably happens elsewhere, but I think especially it's kind of like a epidemic of this more recently in China. Maybe it's been something I didn't take note of as much of while I was working, but I switched jobs recently, and that's when like a lot of things happened around the time China opened up, and my company was no longer able to continue like providing me that role because they were no longer legally permitted to. Like my school was like officially okay for like the last couple of years, but new rules regarding training schools and such and other factors seem to have been reason for them not to be able to extend a new work permit for me. And so this wouldn't be an issue, but I was given a lot of misinformation, and because within China, like information is sadly an addition, like it's its own currency in a way, because it's kind of hard to get reliable information, and also there's like not as robust a support community as I would like amongst the foreigners in general, and even like for our regular system of as like teachers within China. So yeah, I'm gonna try and get into that a bit because that's where I want to go with this. But yeah, I'll go over the course of events first. So course of events, as succinctly as I can say, I was working in China multiple years, everything cool, had a fantastic job. I was making a lot of money. I saved a lot of money. Unfortunately, I spend a lot now because I have to deal with some issues recently. But yeah, things were going well. I had a I had suspected that my employer was increasingly being a bit shady, and so I made preparations in case I needed to switch jobs. And so I was like, me finding a job technically should not be an issue. It's something I've noticed though that ended up being a difficulty for me was I had like a perfect storm of issues to deal with regarding getting a new job and that I couldn't necessarily have fully foreseen. I'm pretty good at like kind of understanding what's the trajectory of things, but what happened was my employer at the time, around the time that the lockdowns and stuff ended, they're obligated to fulfill certain like certain fiduciary duties as the employer, and that's why I like a lot of the many things I like about China is like their like labor laws and such are actually quite robust. Like they're technically very fairly strong workers protections. I think not perfect, but I mean it's a pretty robust system, and I arguably as good, if not maybe better, than back in the United States because there's stuff that in the United States I feel like could be better as well, right? So yeah, I say this. The trajectory for all this is essentially I was employed. I found out after lockdowns and stuff were right afterwards. We were about to start back to work, and then I was informed that this was also the time my work permit was going to expire. That the employer, was not able to renew my work permit. For it's not because I'm not a great teacher. I'm actually a great teacher, but the reason is that they are not legally able to because the facility, the institution, there are new rules for that institution, so they had to like they could not afford to. They either couldn't afford to and or were not permitted to due to changes in like legislation for training schools throughout China. And so I was notified of this way later than I should have been notified. And up to this point, I've been very patient because I liked my job. I mainly because my coworkers and my students and everybody were fantastic, and I had history with them. I've been loyal to the company for multiple years. Uh, I had been patient with them when they were supposed to pay me like my salary at after like a month or something like that, right? So it's a long, complicated story, but I'll try and keep this. I know it's already 10 minutes basically, but in essence, I had my like they give you like a partial payment sometimes during the lockdowns, and technically, I know the laws is like they're supposed to actually pay you the full amount that you're supposed to get for your base salary, which was I did not get the full amount of. Now, again, I'm aware the whole time that this is technically a violation of the rules, but I was trying to be patient because I like my school, and I had no reason to think that they would like mistreat me near the end of my contract. Now, I understand this is maybe naive of me at that time. But I spent 3 years with them. I built a rapport. I had a sense that maybe things were getting shady, and that's always something you should be on the watch out for when you're teaching overseas, but especially unfortunately in China because like there's like a lot of opaqueness going on between employer and employee at times, and I think that's actually a problem in any job. You don't want to have like the boss telling you to do stuff, and you're like, wait, why, right? And they won't explain in detail or give you clear answers or very immediate answers. And this was what I was facing when I was trying to get paid for like the lockdown period. I didn't get my full salary. I was like, all right, it's okay. I understand you guys are going through stuff. I want to support the company because you guys have been cool. We've been cool this far. Just pay me all of it when we start back work. We start back work actually later than the period that most other schools start back work. And I've personal reasons for like I can break down why I think this is kind of shady uh, on their behalf. But in essence, that's what happened. Uh, I got notified like way later than I probably should have been notified that they cannot renew my work permit. And this would not have been an issue if I'd been notified earlier, so I could look for work like it was not a rush. And then what makes it even worse is they notified me right before the Chinese holiday vacation. So I was really screwed. Like I honestly don't feel like this was an accident. It doesn't actually really matter whether it was an accident or not though. What matters is the outcome happened and I was negatively impacted for it. Uh, but yeah, so I had actually spoken with the Public Security Bureau, and they told me like it's okay. Like I was the whole time I was like, is it okay that they're like telling me to just let my work permit expire? Is it okay? And I talked to PSB. They were like, yeah, just reapply. And I was like, do I need anything new? Do I need? I want to know what I need. Any new documents that may complicate this versus the original when I first got here. And homegirl was like, yes, you're fine. You're good. Just resubmit them. You don't need new documents. And I asked my boss and my supervisor, I was like, are you sure this is okay that my work permit expired? And they were like, yeah, just let it expire. I was like, seems sus, but all right. I mean, technically it's illegal behavior if they like do certain things. And I personally think I'm gonna have to take them to court over some of this stuff. But yeah, stuff happened. And so work permit was allowed to expire. And I fulfilled my role. And what makes this worse is I was like, it was an emotional thing during this time because I'm saying bye to all my students, my coworkers, and stuff. So it's not like, and it's all happened like later than it should have happened. Everybody had started work already back in January or so, mostly, and we started back in February. And I had like a week or two left to solve a lot of problems after the holiday, and I'd been pretty diligent as soon as I found out a confirmation. I had to be on them to tell me the information about when I'm going to get my work permit renewed. So yeah, all this seemed really sus, and this is something you want to watch out for as a English teacher overseas and in China specifically, but in general, right? Uh, some companies and some employers, maybe too many, let's put it, will behave in unscrupulous fashion and try and like abuse their power or rules and to help them get off the hook when it's technically their responsibility. They're obligated. It's their fiduciary duty as your employer. So after this happens, I find out almost immediately after I spent like a month negotiating that I found a new school. It was not perfect, but I found this college to work at, and it was paying me above the average for most colleges by technically a lot more than the average for most colleges, right? All was green lighted to go, and I was under the impression even before my work permit expires, like I'll just go to the school, everything will be fine, according to everybody that I was talking to, including PSB, the woman who was there. I even got her name and number down. Always do that. Make sure you have record of who you spoke with, what they say, and everything. Just be safe, because like you want, especially in China, like you want to make sure people are like following the rules, just like they make you follow the rules, right? It's a two-way street, ideally, right? So yeah, after finding out that my work permit expired and like I'd gone through the whole saying goodbye phase, I was notified that I needed a new non-criminal record. Now I was like, that should be no problem because I've been in China the whole time. I haven't left China whatsoever. I've been a model, arguably a model guest within China. So I was like, I have no record, and I can. The PSB person who like was there was willing to help me find it. Like the PSB were trying to help me. They gave me the documents and stuff, and they talked to my employer for me when my employer was being kind of like uh, neglectful, in my opinion. And so I was like, this shouldn't be an issue. This should be all very smooth. I've thought about what's probably going to happen, and unfortunately, I kept getting like again, this was like a perfect storm of problems to deal with within China as an employee at a language teaching facility. They needed, according to the Foreign Expert Bureau, the only governmental person I've had any kind of disagreements with at all, or like difficult time with at all, because usually like they just perform their function as a representative of the government. But unfortunately for that province, I don't know if I again this is I don't want to spread rumors or anything. I just it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that conveniently they were having me sign a bunch of documents. So like it's almost seemed like the foreign expert bureau person, and I had to go talk to them in person because the college was far from where the main city was. So I was doing this on my own because the college didn't seem to like know what to do, and I've done most of this stuff before. So I had to go talk to the foreign expert bureau. The guy, there's only like two people in charge at our particular province, and at least in the office that I saw, like I went to the office, right? And I spoke to this person, and they were like, it was like pulling teeth to get basic information about what I'm supposed to do and what's normally supposed to like a formal procedure. And I actually had the same problem when I was trying to ask the American embassy, like, hey, could you guys explain to me what school? Like, I was just trying to figure out like what's normal, and like I got some information about like who to contact, but for the most part, I actually had to do most of the research on my own. So here we are. I have to spend. I get put on a stay permit. I did that before because they told me to let my work permit expire, and I'd gotten on a stay permit immediately, so I didn't have to feel so stressed out. And then afterwards, I find out I need a new document, and I was like, "Cool, I got the document here. I've been in China the whole time." And the foreign expert bureau guy was being real sus, and he was like, "No, you need it from the United States." And I was like, "But you're the guy who makes the decisions on this. You know that I've only been in this country and I've not left the country. It's all my records. They would be known to the system. So why would I need a new document?" And I get the vibe that he maybe knows my former employer for some reason, and or just doesn't like America. I understand if he's like just like he made some comments about like the South China Sea or something and comparing it to our situation or some shit, and it was completely irrelevant. But he was just being difficult, and yeah, I just felt like this guy is not doing his job effectively or like what he's supposed to do, like according to procedure. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't like me, and or I'll try to explain to him like I understand you feel that way towards Americans. I actually personally understand your grievances with my country, as I have many of the same grievances. But please understand that I am not the country. So like by hurting me, you're not hurting the country. My country's already trying to hurt me for the most part, and people who look like me. Try and go into the full explanation here. Like why are you directing this heat towards me? Like I'm not in charge of shit. I can't get them out of the fucking like the. I can't tell Joe Biden what to do. Like I try. I have it for not for lack of trying to tell, or the United States what are better versus worse practices internationally, and complaining about things that I think are terrible. But yeah. So I have to diplomatically discuss this with him, knowing that he doesn't seem to be too fond of Americans, and also that he seems to have some kind of inconvenient rapport with my former employer, and asked me to sign documents. That I went back and I found out. I showed him like you had me sign. Look for this document. This is the one that my employer gave me. That he said that you told him to give me, and so I signed this thing. This was sus to me because it basically was a document saying that like, oh, there's no economic issues or whatnot. And I was like, there are definitely economic issues with between me and the employer. But again, I need this document to like, I need him to give me certain paperwork to move forward and like switch jobs effectively. It's really just superfluous stuff, and the new employer actually probably doesn't even need it personally. But again, they didn't know me first. They don't know me, so the new employer needed to like understand my character or something. And I was like, all my coworkers love me, all my students love me. Like there should not be a problem. Like I'll give you any of their information, but I do personally like think there are like some issues with me and the employer. But again, he has no reasons, no grounds to like criticize me because I've been like a fantastic employee, and nobody disputes that. Like almost indisputable, right? So I'm diplomatically dealing with this, and he basically gives me a document that's like the wrong document. And I show the Foreign Export Bureau in person because I'm like the only one who can do it because other schools too far. And he's one upset that I'm going to him directly. I'm like, hey, it's not my choice. I told the school to do this. They're dragging their feet. It's better if I just do it because I'm already over here. They're like far away, so it's kind of inconvenient. Even I understand the situation, right? And so I was like, and also I started noticing like if I go talk to them in person, they can't like come up with many excuses that I like they try and hand wave me away or some shit, right? Like no, I need to know why you're doing X, Y, or Z thing. Like there's a protocol, and you're supposed to follow the protocols, the rules, of the country that you were empowered to work within, right, as a representative of your government. And so if it's not consistent with the national government, then you're fucking you're not doing your job correctly. I didn't say that, of course. I'm gonna like piss him off further. But yeah, there's like protocol that's like in an ideal world, every person is supposed to generally follow. Just like they have basic assumptions of what your job is and what you're supposed to do in your capacity, they have obligations themselves that they're supposed to fulfill. And so all I did was like notify this guy, hey, like, let me see the rules that you're quoting from to understand why you're like. Technically, I'm pretty sure you could waive this as a requirement because you're the bureau in charge of this for the whole province. But I understand maybe you're just a stickler for the rules or something. So let me see the rules that you're citing. And so after some effort, I got them to show me briefly, like open the little book because it's right here. And I was like, so it noted that it was 6 months. If the non-criminal record's from 6 months or over 6 months, then it's technically not it doesn't qualify. But again, I didn't leave the country, so there shouldn't be a need for this. But I get it. This guy, for whatever reasons, wants to be kind of difficult. So I was like, all right, we'll do the whole thing, and I'll go through the process. And so at first, I was like, all right, maybe I can expedite this. I contacted somebody I knew who works back home, and they got me a document saying, hey, he's not a criminal. Somebody of repute, right? And I showed this to them. They were like, this doesn't qualify. Now I looked at the rules, and it took me a while to find the exact rules he was quoting for. I can share them with other people who were teaching English in China. So like we're all informed and following the rules and stuff like we're supposed to, right? But basically, I looked at the rules, and it said that like technically this person should qualify as a representative. But the Foreign Export Bureau guy, because he's like, my opinion, on a power trip, wants specifically the one that's outlined, not just like the general framework of a government official. So I was like, okay. I tried to contact my police department, and of course, also the police department are going to be difficult with me while I'm outside the country. Even though it was like took me I was able to get it like in 5 minutes when I went in person, but because I'm outside the country, despite having all records of like I'm over here, I can prove I am who I am. I know the person who's related. Like I can. I went to the school and stuff. They didn't want to help. Now this was very frustrating because I'm dealing with two different countries that are not on the best of terms right now, and like it's one thing when it's just one side that's the problem, but if I'm having trouble on both sides governmentally, this is extremely frustrating. But I realized that I could actually get a like the background check done elsewhere, so I found another means to get a background check. I had a friend, thankfully, able to get it for me, and they got the hard copy for me, and then scanned and sent it to me. After that, I found out that like I was like, is this just enough? Because like this verifies I'm not a criminal. This person doesn't. The Foreign Export Bureau person didn't want to help, even though I had that document. So they were like, no, you need to authenticate it. And I was like, all right, this is like so extra. Like there's no need for, there shouldn't be a need for this. Technically, the person who makes the rules, like, I've only been here, and even the PSB, like my Chinese record here is also great. But again, this person has issues with me for whatever reasons, or doesn't want to like for whatever reasons doesn't want to do it. So I find out that I have to spend like basically a month. I had to pay like money, like 3,000 RMB, which is like a lot of money technically, to go get this document authenticated, which would take almost no time back in California if I were back home. But unfortunately, yeah, it's like I'm not gonna spend a bunch of money, go back to California, then come back to China, just like to go through the process again, and then I would have messed up my stay permit that I was on. So like everything got basically screwed, as soon as I let my work permit expire. So, learn from me if you haven't already heard before. I hate that I made that mistake. But yeah, don't let your work permit expire at all cost. Avoid that. And if you must let your work permit expire, be prepared for all the new stuff like that you might need. I thankfully only needed the new non-criminal record, which is actually going to be not necessary in the coming future because China is going to sign on to the Hague Convention approximately in November maybe, and then that won't even be fucking necessary. So this guy, like, I tried to inform him, and he doesn't care. Like, he just wants to be difficult. So I went along with what are the formal rules, and I was going to expect him to do the same. Unfortunately, I ended up getting the documents right before my second state permit was about to expire. So I ended up having to leave the country. And after that, I had to go to like another country, Thailand, and I've stayed there. He was supposed to process my paperwork back at like either right before or right after May Day, and there was like this long, drawn out thing where he's like, "Oh, you still don't have the right things, documents, or something." He doesn't believe my documents are good, even though I had a Chinese company that I saw their business license for, paid them to get the authentication. Like, it's just because it's not exactly the identical to the one I first had approved. I was like, no, according to the rules, it states that this is a credible document. This is okay. I know, by China rules, not my rules. And so here we are in this unfortunate circumstance where I've now had to spend a bunch of time and money and stress and do all this research and what I feel is a fairly opaque circumstance as a person who speaks English in a country that does not speak English, right? And the guy who's in charge is like not trying very hard to be especially helpful. So these are just hurdles and stuff I had to clear, and I'm still in the process of trying to clear. I think I got it like finally dealt with after talking to the company or the school I'm going to move on to. But yeah, this is just an example. Of course, I had to spend money while I've been traveling, and I've had to jump to another country because it took even longer than I thought it was supposed to. And I get the sentiment. I could be wrong, but I get the sentiment that this was not an accident. Like, I feel like they were trying to like make me go away because the person like either maybe doesn't like me or maybe is trying to help my former employer. It's kind of sus, but I don't know. So with that being the case, I had to now move over to Bali. I've now been in Thailand and Bali. I would love to have done cool videos on culture and all the other awesome stuff. I just see some beautiful things while I was there. I try to make the most of the time I was in these places. I'm meant to leave Bali yesterday. I messed up. But again, like lots of headaches and stuff and travel stuff that I was not should not have had to do, but ended up having to do because my work permit was allowed to expire. And just not the best communication, and I feel that came off almost intentionally from my employer, who I think is ultimately the root of the problem. Even the bureaucrat, while they're like, I think they're like performing unprofessionally in their role, or had been up to this point. Maybe now they're doing better, but while they're culpable and holding me back, it all came back to my employer letting my work permit expire. So yeah, this is this is the layer with just the work permit stuff and my employer. The recruiters I've gotten to know over a couple of years, specifically within my province, have been less than helpful, which is funny because all the previous years I've communicated with them. I got passed for almost every interview I had like done with them. Like, I got interviews with different schools. I got to know many of the different schools. I even communicate with other teachers to kind of understand what schools that they like their experience with different schools. And I think this is something that's been lacking within the foreign teaching community in China, is that like our social community like group, like our ability to communicate and coordinate to like make sure like to avoid exploitative circumstances from our employers is hindered. And oftentimes, like, either the employers will try, like from different companies or something, might try and pit us against each other when it's not actually necessary, or the recruiters will actually try and like be set against the workers coming in. And so this gets me to my ultimate point at the end. I just want to get you to the story of like how I got to this and why I've been kind of like MIA, more so than just because of work, right? I haven't been able to work. uh, but yeah. So the recruiters, I feel like, have in essence been pit against many of the incoming workers, and they've been lowballing the deals, the offers and stuff, right? And I noticed this back, I think, in January. It was like I've been paying attention to the offers for different provinces for each tier of city, and I have a rough idea of what it should be. Even with the financial ups and downs within China, I'm like get a vibe of like what should be normal versus not normal in terms of a salary for an experienced worker or even an unexperienced worker, and for each type of different school, right? I have a pretty robust familiarity with it at this point, and I haven't been dragging my feet. I've been like paying attention the last couple of years because I want to make sure that I'm secure in my future. So, with all that in mind, I've noted that back in January, conveniently, many of the offers were shitty. And I was like, this is weird. So I actually intervened personally to contribute the offers that I couldn't use that were easily better than any of the ones that were being demonstrated because I'm in part of many different communities. And so I noticed this was part of the problem. It was a band-aid solution, but as one that I think as a fellow worker is important to kind of like empower us to all have a better job market. It makes sure that the job market isn't like bad for workers coming in, and also make sure that like people like still have faith in the job market within China for teaching as a foreign English teacher, right? Or language. It might apply to other jobs, but like specifically I do teaching, so I was like, well, why? So yeah, I noted that I was like, what could possibly make people that are recruiters not want to give like the better offers or argue for fair offers, right, for the people who are coming in. And it's because essentially it's similar to back in the United States and elsewhere that some of the recruiters are basically performing like a capitalist, and they want to like they get paid off of commitments. Generally, I'm willing to bet, I could be wrong, but I'm willing to bet they get commission in some way, shape, or form from the schools based upon the offers that they are able to get from incoming foreign teachers. So if you accept a poor offer that's below the normative thresholds for your experience bracket and such, and your like education, etc., then they're able to like the people who are employers are able to kind of cheat the system and get cheap teachers or like just stand-ins, in my opinion, because some of the foreigners that they get to be teachers are non-native speakers that are like, again, I have no problem with non-native speakers. Ideally they should be qualified. I'm not trying to, and there are places that need foreign teachers and they may have a lack of foreign teachers because they can't afford to pay as much. But again, we want to maintain a strong job market, and that's important for both technically the schools themselves and the people who are going to work in these positions, like myself. So what's happening is they're pitting workers versus workers and recruiters against workers. And I don't know if this is an intentional thing or just it might have happened accidentally. But regardless, the outcome is not desirable. So, in the time that I noted it in January, I noticed after I started adding in the offers that I saw that I wasn't going to take, that were pretty good offers, that the offers started to seem to improve to what they should be in value. And so that was a band-aid solution. It's not going to last every time. Uh, so again, also in February to reinforce this, I noticed that many of the offers, because the time like they try and like play a game of chicken. I think the schools do a game of chicken to try and see if they can the cheapest English teacher they can get before a certain time, right? And there's hiring seasons for this. I didn't really pay as much attention, but this year now I've had to pay a lot of attention. But basically, February was a hiring like a last minute thing, so I have to make sure that they have a teacher around this time because school was starting, right? And so all of a sudden, many of the offers I was like told were impossible or like not realistic, which I know are realistic because I've gotten them in the past, and I've had to turn them down because I liked my school. But many of the offers that seemed impossible, or they cited some excuse about like oh, the economy's bad or some shit. I was like, I've been following the economy actually. Also, I was like, it's not that bad. But yeah, all of a sudden it was like normal offers, and I was like, this is what this should have been at. This is what's been like the last couple of years. And then I see more recently there was a downward trend right before July and right before June. It's heating up a little bit again because there's going to be a hiring period around. They need teachers by August and September, so they're going to get thirsty around like that time period. So I'm seeing from the recruiters a certain pattern that I don't like. That seems like prejudicial, and it actually I think is self-defeating because if they like they're gonna like what I consider blow up the job market and so to speak, metaphorically, by like getting a bunch of people in here at poor, like salaries that they shouldn't be getting paid, that are below their what they should be getting paid, or underqualified people, or both, and then have them meat grind them, put them through a bunch of bullshit, and then like kick them out the door. Now, I'm of course struggling because I'm trying to avoid that end circumstance. I fortunately had found a job even before I left my former job, and I was already ready to transfer. I was just trying to. In fact, I could have gotten a job very easily in another province that would have solved a lot of problems. But I was trying to stay in the province I'd known the last couple of years because I'm very fond of the province. And unfortunately, that particular bureaucrat, my former employer, were like instrumental in making my life kind of chaotic and costing me kind of a lot of money and time. And had I known these things beforehand, I could have avoided them. So yeah, this is just a kind of forewarning for people who might want to come teach English overseas in general, but also and especially within China. Is yeah, the learn from what I've had to be gone through, right? What I've had to go through. Uh, so yeah, I think that sums up part of it. I've noticed this, and I want to try and inform people. I think it's the first thing, other workers, so we can kind of coordinate better to make sure that we're not like working against the best interests of everyone. And so, if you were interested in teaching English overseas, and especially if you're interested in teaching English in China, be conscious of what your value, like what your value should be, based upon the work. I'm happy to share any information or sources and reasons I believe certain tiers of cities should be able to pay, or certain schools. Some schools can't actually pay as much as they want to pay. Some schools might lie about how much they can actually pay just to get like a teacher because they're in a desperate situation. Like the companies, unfortunately, are not always scrupulous. It just tends to be the case. I'm most disappointed by the bureaucrat because he's not he's part of the government, so he should be, in my opinion, have been more understanding of my circumstances and have informed me of these things. It should not have been a challenge gathering, like getting the information to know what I'm supposed to do next. And I feel like that was handled unprofessionally in regard to his role. The people who are like in charge of companies and stuff are in the business of making money, so they're fundamentally sort of capitalist in mindset. And I understand that it is a business to many people. That's part of the reason it's actually getting regulated by the government. So yeah, I just want to impart that insight and that experience, just some of my experience while over the last couple of years. And I want to reiterate that my experience up to this point, before maybe November even, there were hiccups here and there, but overall, my time in China and specifically that province was fantastic. But I now have lost faith in the quality of work and everything after like having to deal with many of the people I've dealt with within the province, because I had a full network of people I was familiar with, and all of a sudden, inconveniently for me, they are not of help, and they're not like they almost seemed like working against me to some extent, like they didn't want to help me. And I was like, dude, I know I have the documents already for the most part, except for the non-criminal record, and I have the education, and I even had another job. I was just looking to see if there's another better offer that was closer to where I wanted to be in the main city, and that was the main thing. But all of it got held up because of the bureaucracy. That thankfully should be like remedied. I think in the immediate future. I think that they're kind of changing things, and because of the signing on to the Hague Convention, once China does that, it'll actually eliminate probably much of the problems I had to face this year. But I'm just really uh, disappointed and frustrated by what I've had to deal with those particular instances of people, both my employer and that particular bureaucrat. Uh, I was actually almost going to leave and switch to another province based on how problematic that role was, because it shouldn't have been at all that long. I should have been working at latest maybe March, maybe April at latest. I should have actually really been working probably because they had the means to do it probably back in February, but because the guy's being difficult and he doesn't like me or something, or like maybe buddies with my former employer wants to help him out, uh, yeah, I got sidelined, and I've been not being able to work, and I've had to spend money, my savings and stuff that took me a long time to build up, uh, out like just like to be able to follow all the rules and requirements. to stay in good standing within China as a foreign teacher. And it's just been very frustrating and costly. I'm going to seek legal remedy for these things once I'm able to, but for now, I'm just focused on getting back to China. So I know it's gone into 40 minutes again. I always do this. I apologize, but I try to make sure I don't skip too many details because I think helps add like crucial insight. I think for people who might overlook like a particular thing ordinarily, like oh they might think twice and be like oh like well maybe I can avoid this mistake. So yeah, this was just in hopes of helping educate other foreign teachers of possible risks involved with teaching overseas, and unfortunately in this case it was especially within China, because I would have discussed with a lot of other foreign teachers in different groups and also in person some of their hardships and such. And this year was brutal for me, and it should not have been. It should have been one of my best years because I've worked up to that point. And I'm now like with my experience and record and stuff, I should be making a lot more money than I'm currently had to accept. And I'm gonna deal with it later. For now, I have to make sure that everything just is back in place. And so hopefully in another week or so, I'll be back in China and I'll be able to start teaching at the new place. And it's been my whole life has been kind of thrown into chaos because of this, what happened back all the way in February. That I'd been trying to track and solve problems for, even know it before I was aware of what were problems to solve. So if you're interested in teaching English overseas, and especially if it's China, you need to know how much each tier of city can generally afford to pay you. You need to know for your qualifications, and for like what school and education you have, educational background you have, because if you're taken in undervalued, there are a lot of people who just want to come in because they're able to speak English and not because they like care about teaching or they're capable of teaching or familiar with teaching or have any of the background necessary. And that's cool, but for particular provinces where there's like not like there's third tier cities, so there are a lot of third tier cities which cannot afford to pay as much, so they need people who like even just are able to speak basic English, I think, right? Or able to like even some of the non-native speakers, if they're not necessarily especially trained or whatnot, those cities probably need that so they can like keep up with the other cities to some extent. They have some kind of footing rather than none at all, right? But for second and first tier cities, these cities should be kept like capable of providing the environment for you, and like they also cost more to live within. So you need to make sure that like you're making enough money to cover expenses. Like globally, there's been inflation. There's like been up and down to the economy. We should be kind of aware of this, but yeah, just be conscious of that. Be conscious of what your value is, and make sure that it's consistent with the market, like what the market should be, right? Pay attention. A lot of foreign teachers I've talked to don't seem to care about these things, which is absurd to me, right? But you should. If you want to be a good teacher and if you want to have a better, more productive time in China, and again, my experience until February, phenomenal overall. Some hiccups, but mostly amazing. Did a great job. I had saved money and everything. Everything was going mostly well, even when things weren't perfect. And yet, and this is with the lockdowns and stuff too. Like everything was still going fairly well, but I noted that near the end of my contract, I was being kind of screwed over, and I didn't even realize that like when it was going to happen. So you got to be on guard whenever your contract is up for renewal, because they might, like the company you might work with or whoever you're working for might do something unscrupulous and try to exploit you or cheat you out of money. And that's kind of the norm for within like amongst people who are kind of geared towards capitalism in general, is they want to like maximize their gains at any losses, like at any expense to you. And that also includes cutting their losses at any expense to you if they can get away with it. So yeah, that seek legal help, and like I want to try and forge community with other people who want to study and or teach English abroad, namely in China specifically right now, but eventually maybe wider community of English teachers. So yeah, reach out to me if you're trying to teach English and capable of teaching English in China as a native speaker. I am not a recruiter. I'm a fellow teacher, and I want to make sure that you and other people are informed so that you can make the decisions that will help make sure the whole system is able to benefit from the students to the employer to the workers, and ideally, it will work for the whole world, right? So that was the gist for right now. I want to end on the note that I just want to try and reach out to people, inform them, and coordinate so we can make sure we have a better overall outcome for everybody. I can provide like some understanding and offer some guidance or direct you to people who can offer better understanding and guidance. But the problem is a lot of these things are not a unified thing. They're kind of here and there. So you just kind of like latch on, and this is not a productive way to conduct business, I believe, or to conduct work. Let's put it better way of putting it. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna try and I don't usually include like this is a tag or something, but I'll try and include education or teaching English in China, etc. Yeah, please like listen to me and hear me out, and you're free to call me like on like if you think I'm full of BS or whatnot, that's okay. But please like back up reasons why and give the evidence. That's why I always try to do is like I have like records and like trying to keep an idea of like communication with people, like what I was told, why is it credible, and how credible it is, yes or no, and like how relevant is it to my situation? Because I think part of the problem is everybody's being kind of pit against each other instead of trying to work towards a communal victory, like a united, productive outcome where everybody can be generally more happy and we can all fulfill the roles that we're trying to fulfill, like we're put in and responsibilities of, right, to the best of our ability. So yeah, I'm gonna end on this. It's already like 46 minutes, super long video. I apologize, but I hope you get some insight from my experience. I'll go into maybe more details another time if I have time. I try not to like I want to get everything out each time I do a topic, and that's why it's such a long video. But yeah, if I ever get a chance to get somebody to edit these for me, these will start getting much shorter in the future. But please bear with me and like help me out, and I'll try and help you because I want everybody to be able to be in a better place. We can have a better outcome for everyone around the world. But first, because I'm working in China, I want to make sure I work with other foreign English teachers in China to make sure we coordinate and understand what's going on and have like a means to access resources and the basic like rules and stuff that we're supposed to be uh, that are supposed to protect us as workers and also make sure that our employers are following their fiduciary duties. They're like what they're supposed to do. So yeah, I'm gonna end on that. Hope you have a good day, and hopefully I'll be able to make more videos. I don't know; it's gonna be kind of hard in the future until I get more stable. But yeah, best of luck to us both.